I'm back live again. I just spoke to Theo, and he's having a little bit of challenge to see me online, but we are trying again, and I'm sure it's going to work. So thank you again for your patience, and stay tuned. I'm watching. Oh, here you go, Theodore. Yeah, I think it's going to here on my screen. That's the wonders of technology, right? Invite. I just invited him. Theo, you should be able to see me. And I just invited you. You should accept me. Oh,
Hello.
that's
Hello.
it. Well, I was saying to
I'm
ask our,
exiting.
huh? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's the Greek number that worked after all. Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
just like yesterday, I think. So, I was
Yeah,
saying that for people like you who perform incredible, complicated surgeries, it's probably more difficult to go live on IG than perform a surgery, it seems to me.
absolutely. Yeah, makes sense.
It makes, anyway, but you're here, and I'm so delighted to have you on the Conversations with Olga. I will say, I welcome our listeners and our viewers, and of course, I will say a few words about you, and then we dive in. How does it sound to you?
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Wonderful. Good to see you too. Well, hello everyone, and welcome again, and happy Lunar New Year. Yes, today is the first day of the new year, and for those uh, who are joining me for us for the first time, I'm Olga Iserlis, and Conversations with Olga is a space where I sit down and I talk about work of these incredible individuals, but not only work, but about their lives, about responsibility, and about the humanity. And I just want to reflect not just on what they do, but how, why, what drives them, and so much more. So today it's my privilege to have Professor Theo Kofidis as our first guest of the year on such an auspicious day of the Lunar New Year, Year of the Horse. And we will start right in. I will say a few words about you, Theo. I know Professor Theo Kofidis for many years. He's a dear friend. And finally, I have an opportunity to have him on a conversation with Olga and for him to share about his journey. Professor Theo is a pioneering heart surgeon, educator, and innovator whose career spans Europe, United States, and Singapore. His work has shaped both surgical practice and medical education all across the continents. This conversation is actually a little bit personal to me because once I was expected to follow the path of medicine myself, and I've seen up and close the discipline and emotional weight this profession carries. So that's why I hold such a deep respect for those who chose this calling. And definitely, you're one of these incredible people. Thank you for joining us, and please help me to welcome Professor Theo Kofidis. Um,
Good to be here, Olga.
Thank you.
Thank you for the hospitality.
It's my pleasure. I will say a few words about you, just a very, very short bio, and because I don't want to forget, because you have so many acclamations and you have so many achievements that I would like to make sure that I at least mention all of them. You hold so many titles: Director of the International Heart Surgery Center in Greece, 𝐿𝐲𝐬, Head of Department of the A Heart Surgery Division at 𝐿𝐲𝐬 Hospital, Professor, YLLSOM National University of Singapore, Surgeon, Professor, Innovator, Educator, and Pilot. We'll talk about it as well. When all titles fall away there, who are you at your real core?
Well, I'm still on the journey of discovering who I am. I'm trying to define the why in my life. I guess we're all familiar with the Simon Sinek concentric cycles of life and success, where the outer circle reflects the what, the mid circle, the how, but the inner circle, the most important, the why.
Yeah.
I guess at the age of 50 something, I have identified my why finally, which may change from decade to decade in our lives, and that's freedom. I think in the end of the day, I'm a person who is seeking freedom and seeking to expand my whole space, eventually by giving in what I do. Giving is living, they say.
Very true.
Expand my whole space and make this world a tiny, tiny, tiny bit better by the time I'm gone.
Well, it's a noble cause, and it's a passion that is calling you, and it's wonderful. We'll talk about it a bit later as well, in more in depth. You know, I was meant, as I mentioned, to become a doctor. My mother very much hoped I would follow that path, and I did study and work in the medical field in New York and London a bit, and even a little bit in Singapore. You were academically exceptional from a very young age. Did excellence feel like a freedom to you, or did it feel like an expectation?
Very good question. Well, I guess the truth is somewhere in between, Olga, because freedom without discipline is chaos. So sometimes we
Okay.
restrain ourselves, we give ourselves goals, milestones, and we stick to them. That may temporarily feel restrictive, limiting in our everyday life, but in the end of the day, it provides you freedom. It opens pathways. It frees you up both mentally, physically, financially, whatever everyone seeks in life
Yes,
comes with this paradox of self-restriction and discipline first. You cannot just let go and expect to reach higher realms.
that's very true. But on yes, and to continue actually on a topic, was there a moment early or when you realized that medicine, and especially heart surgery, was not only just a profession but a calling for you? When did this happen?
Um, it happened after I started medical studies. And I'll be very frank and honest with you. I come from a teacher's family. You know, teachers can be very strict parents.
Yes.
And where I grew up in a small little town, which nobody knows, in the northeastern part of Greece, uh, two teachers' parents would force their kids to become the best student and then, of course, doctors.
Yeah.
So I fell into that
Sounds
trap.
familiar.
But I wasn't, I was never an analytical mind. I was always a cascadal mind, a more like more impulsive mind. And so when I entered the medical field, as I almost had to, um, I realized that I'm never going to be a good internist, a good pathologist, a good
Yes.
endocrinologist, because these people are deeply cultivated and they think a lot, analyze a lot. I wanted action, Olga. I wanted to have a job or a work that is elementary, intense, and dramatic. That was
You
me
got it.
at that time. So I could only go into heart surgery for my perception and understanding. That's why I
Oh,
became a plumber of the heart, as we say on a light-hearted note.
well, if you say so. um, and Theo, you trained across Germany, the US, Switzerland, Singapore, and Greece, of course. So what did this moving across so many systems and cultures give you that staying in one place never could? And I actually, you know, I always talk about it because being in Singapore for so many years and raising my children as a third culture kids, I see the tremendous difference between people who are raised among different cultures versus people who live all their lives in one country. So what was
Yeah.
it for you?
Yeah, so I guess that's a very, very important question. I was after the holy grail of vertical and specialized knowledge. And in my field, specialized knowledge is everything. We're in the year 2026, or the 2 decades before that. It didn't make sense to me to just become a generalist heart surgeon.
Yes.
You must deepen and you must become a super specialist and do something excellent. You see, my profession in Singapore and in the English speaking world is called cardiothoracic surgeon. Soon enough, I realized that you cannot be top in cardiac and top in thoracic and top in vascular. All this comes together as one discipline. So I decided that I'm gonna chase for the best mentor to bring my skill to the next level. So I went to
Mhm.
school in Greece. I went to university in Germany, did my internship in two very good centers in the United States, amongst which Texas Heart. Then I went to North Germany to a very advanced transplant and aortic surgery center in Hanover and finished it off with a stipend with an award by the German state, which brought me to Stanford University. So I knew that I have to focus in adult cardiac
Yeah.
surgery, not pediatric, no children, and I had to really become good at that and eventually even seek to learn a subspecialty, which became the minimal invasive heart surgery. Then, accidentally, by coincidence, you can call it whatever you want, I found myself in Singapore some 20 years ago. And that's
Yeah.
where things took their path.
Yes. It's amazing. And of course, your years in Singapore were absolutely deeply formative. And that probably was a chapter of change in the way that you started to think about leadership, responsibility, and care as well, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. Singapore was transformative for me. Very high on a scientific academic standard. I loved academia. I loved improvising and researching and doing medical research. And that, of course, warranted that I work in a university environment.
Yeah.
So when I was invited to join in the Department of CTVS at NUH by my professor, mentor, and great friend, Professor C.N. Lee, in 2005, I didn't think twice. So that's where it all started. And a university environment like NUS gives you an amazing ecosystem
Yes.
where you can both indulge in the operation theater and become a good surgeon, but at the same time, develop ideas that will leave a legacy and change the way we do things. That's why we do research, which I started right away upon my arrival. Singapore is very, very powerful in financing early stage research. And of course,
Mhm.
I took, in a good sense, every advantage of it.
Of course, of course. And at what point did you realize that actually technical excellence alone was not enough? That something else was required of you as a surgeon?
Well, that's my personal perceptions. There are different types of surgeons. There are brain-based surgeons, there are manual-based surgeons, and there are chi, solar plexus-based surgeons. There are different personalities, and each one indulges and enjoys in his own domain and talent. A majority of heart surgeons face it. I mean, believe it or not, they built up expertise in one domain, and then they do their operations, do a great job, go home, they're happy with it. I was an uneasy spirit at an earlier age, and I wanted to contribute to the development of heart
Yeah.
surgery. That's why I engaged in research very early on. And then, arising from my everyday practice, I saw patients being fearful of heart surgery. I saw patients being confused about what's going to happen. Therefore, I went and learned and subspecialized in minimal invasive heart surgery in order to lessen the burden and the trouble of the patients during this journey.
Thank you for that. Actually, that brings me to another point that, people often talk about surgeons to have steady hands. It's very
Hmm.
important for the surgery. But what about
Hmm.
steady mind? How did
Yeah,
you learn to cultivate that? And I think you just touched about it a little bit because you
yeah,
come from the deeper
yeah,
philosophical notion of it. But can you please elaborate a little
yeah.
bit?
Well, absolutely. What's the use of two amazing hands, steady hands, but an uneasy and I mean an unsteady spirit,
Yes.
impulsiveness, nervousness, a lack of kindness and compassion towards the patient. So sometimes they ask me, "Who is the best surgeon in the world for you? The best heart surgeon?" So, and I answer to them, "What do you define as best? Is
Yeah.
it the best technician plumber in the operation theater who can accomplish the procedure very fast and all this? Is it the best troubleshooter who is salvaging very difficult cases which others drop? Is it the best human being who is joining the patient in his journey, taking them by the hand, and is there
Yeah.
for the patient 24/7? There are surgeons who may be operating in all disciplines, operating and then disappearing, and they go by to say hello just
Yes.
before discharge. There are these paradigms. I'm not talking about Singapore, generally
Yes.
across the world. So a good surgeon, it's a conglomeration of things.
Exactly.
But most importantly, you must be centered. You must have the surgery, medicine, in the most primary Hippocratic sense in your heart and deep in your mind.
That's very well defined, very well answered. I actually wanted to comment that I have immense respect for doctors because of the emotional weight of patients' lives that don't really end when the shift is finished, when you finish the surgery. As someone who is naturally empathetic like you, how do you carry that responsibility while remaining absolutely clear, professional, and well in general? I've seen you after the surgery. We had number of dinners and meetings and everything, and you just told me about your day, and yet
Mm.
you were well and joking, and at the same time uh, introspective about what
Yeah.
you've done for that on that particular day. So it's very admiring. How
Well,
do you manage it?
I'm a bit like you, Olga, in multitasking. We grow into this type of life. Uh, you're right. If we don't take care of our vehicle, our body, our physique, we lost it because heart surgery is a very physically demanding job. There is no surgeon, heart surgeon at my age who doesn't have a bit of an ailment here and a pain there because of the intensity of the work,
Yeah.
be it legs or back or neck and things like that.
Yes.
So we must maintain and train our body because heart surgeons come with an expiry date. If I were a philosopher or a historian or a teacher and my mind is okay, I could go on until 90. But a heart surgeon, I guess when he approaches 70, he's not the same anymore. He works more with his experience rather than his reflexes,
Yes.
acuity of eyesight, and all this. But anyway, so um, you must take care of all aspects. However, I must make a distinction here. Many people think that as you grow older as a heart surgeon, you
Yes.
become cooler, you develop nerves of steel.
Yeah.
In my case, at least, is exactly the opposite, Olga. When you engage in this, like when you're young, you often want to prove that you can do this type of surgery. You can sustain 36 hours in the operation
Yeah.
theater. You can do the surgery great through small incisions and things like that. This is the early age of an ambitious young heart surgeon who eventually subconsciously sees his profession a bit as an Olympic sport, like a championship. I will prove to the other colleagues that I can do it. But as you grow older, this spectrum of emotions diversifies because as you grow older, you become a husband, you become a father, you become all these things that your patient is himself when he comes on the operation table. And in my case, the older I grow, the more actually emotionally attached I am to the patient. Of course,
Yeah.
then hands go on autopilot now after so many thousands of cases, but you are more emotionally involved and don't forgive any mishaps or mistakes.
Well done. Yeah, I actually but you answered it because I wanted to ask you, what does the patient expect from his or her surgeon or doctor, I should say. But you just answered it. It's a very, very particular, very strong relationship. But how do you build this trust? Not just with patients, but even with the teams who operate together with you. How do you build this rapport, the relationships?
No, it's not an exaggeration to say that if you want in the operation theater, heart surgery is all about leadership. coordinating a team of 12, 15 people. And for people to trust you, it goes beyond prior reputation. So a good leader places himself in all of the others' shoes and basically takes their perspective and tries to coordinate for the best interest of the patient. Is really very similar to a pilot and his training. Eventually, we will touch upon
Well, they
this
talk
later on.
about that exactly. That's the
Yeah.
correlation.
So, yeah, trust is built when you are there. When the other person feels that you do it for them, not for yourself.
Yeah.
And so, thankfully, in my operation theater, where I operate now, and I do operate in many countries, is not only the surgeons I teach trust me because of the prior reputation. They trust me because I try to create an environment of safety, an environment of self-fulfillment for them rather than for myself. And that becomes a boomerang, basically, in a positive sense.
Yes. Well, the leadership and the technique and the way you pursue leadership is extremely important and well answered. I would like to move a little bit into the area of discussion on innovation, the risk, and progress in general, because progress in medicine and in science is extremely rapid. But medicine often reverses tradition. What gives you the courage to change established norms? What gave you the courage to basically to abandon so many known facts and known ways of doing the heart surgery?
Yeah. So, look, Olga, I feel every big change, every breakthrough in our lives, in any domain in our life, in order to reach on the other side and create something impactful. I mean, success is one thing. We're all successful. We studied, we got a diploma and all this, but impact on the planet is on a different scale, is a different thing. And if you want to reach impact, that's maybe a bit of my heartfelt advice for the younger ones. You always have to go through the barrier of fear. There is no way to, jump over the barrier or go around it. You have to face your fears. You have to come out the other side. How does this happen? If the motivation on the other side is bigger than your fear, for example, the impact, as I said, the legacy, or the pain points arising from the patient suffering. I couldn't see patients being chopped open for no reason if there is no reason. Even if that would mean that I have to leave my convenience in Singapore, I have to go for a sabbatical many years ago and come back with specialized skill to do the same operations through small keyholes, minimal invasively.
Incredible.
Was it easy? No, it wasn't. I had to live alone, far away from my family, invest a lot of time, a lot of money, and yet it is all worth it because the pain point is the journey of the patient I felt is not ideal. And I see those pain points all around me in the field of heart surgery. Why should we open up if we can do the same surgery through a small keyhole? So many benefits for the patients. Or new tools. We should never be satisfied with what is given right now. Surgical tools are very advanced, but they're not ideal. They're not made by God. Humans made them. So they need constant improvement. Implants, heart valves that we put in our body, they're not ideal. They just do the job, okay. But I feel they're not ideal. So I engage very actively in improving all those, the techniques as well as the tools to apply the techniques.
You're definitely maverick. It's incredible. You pioneered minimally invasive heart surgery in the whole Southeast Asia. Beyond small incisions, what does less invasive truly means to you? You described a little bit the process, but maybe you can dive in a little bit more in depth so our listeners understand what you actually done as a complete innovator.
Okay, so let me get a bit dramatic in an actor sense. Imagine this, my thigh is the sternum, is the chest bone. Okay, it looks exactly like that. It's in the middle of our chest, in the front. And for 70 years now, in order to do heart surgery, we've been opening the chest bone to access the heart. Now, in the meantime, however, surgeon skills, tools, cameras have improved to that extent that we can do the same surgeries through small keyholes on the side. What does this mean for the patient? Minimal invasive, yes, but maximal impact for the patient. Why? smaller wound, smaller trauma, less pain, less blood loss, less infections, less arrhythmias, irregular heartbeat, better cosmetics, of course. We
Yeah.
remember this. The surgery, every time we look into the mirror, its sternum is split in the middle. So better cosmetics, but most importantly, Olga, is the much better and faster rehabilitation, recovery. Patients mobilize much faster. They go
Yeah.
back to their daily activities much faster. They can breathe and exercise their lungs much faster and much better. So minimal invasive may not be for every single case. There are some very difficult, complex cases which we better do through the chest bone. But the people and your followers out there should know that the majority of cases in the hand of a minimal invasive expert can now be performed with these new tools safely. It's not the good new kid on the block. It's not experimental, as some antagonists, as some
Yeah.
competitors used to say. If he operates you like this, like that, visibility is not good. This is usually said by people who never tried it
Done
or
it.
never
Yeah.
learned it themselves.
Yes.
So it's the way to go. It's in the very agreement with the most primary Hippocrates principles, primum non nocere. That means if you can solve the problem by harming less, you must harm less.
Beautiful. But nevertheless, and thank you for that. And it's extremely interesting. Besides, of course, it's very inspiring and I should say positive, of course. But nevertheless, every innovation carries risks. How do we decide which risks are worth taking?
Okay. In general, because the rough risks, let's say, tough for the ears of the layman, but there is always a small risk a patient doesn't make it, right? A tiny risk is always there, even for a gallbladder operation or a smaller operation. Now, for these major risks, like say stroke or not making it, which are thankfully very, very low, both minimal invasive and sternotomy, the traditional operation, carry the same risk.
Okay.
It's the other benefits that minimal invasive is superior, as I mentioned before. Less pain,
Yes.
faster mobility, and with that comes lesser risk. Because if my risk for infection or for bleeding or for lung dysfunction is less, obviously, it's a better way to go. So, thankfully, the risk with today's experience and across Singapore is very, very low for most of the heart surgeries. Now,
That's good.
how do
That's
we decide? We decide by weighing the risk and the benefit. If we don't do anything, obviously the patient will not make it.
yes.
So,
Yes.
in the long run,
Well, I love that you're so positive, but I
yeah,
want to challenge you. What I'm sure, I mean, like all of us, and I don't want to say I'm sure, but I'm pretty sure that you had some failures. So, what has failure taught you that success would never be able to teach you? That never, success is not the point of reference.
yeah. Well, failures are not as dramatic and Hollywood-like in terms of we forget a seizures in the body or somebody accidentally yanked a IV line. No, no, no. This doesn't happen in our profession because we go into the operation theater, we provide our well-tested skill
Yeah,
for the best interest of the patient. But some patients are simply too sick, cases are too complex, and things can happen, like bleeding, infections, and things like that. So it's not necessarily a personal failure of the surgeon. I'm not saying it cannot happen. It's more of the body cannot take this trauma and this adventure. Thankfully, it happens very, very rarely. And there is no surgeon whatsoever out there who will tell you, I never experienced failures, meaning losing my patient, or
yeah,
even more minor failures. This surgeon is a liar. He doesn't operate. So
yeah,
the failure, therefore, teaches you humility. It teaches you respect. If you cannot draw conclusions from your failure, go back to the drawing board and see what you can improve in the team, in the operation theater, technically, in the instruments, or
yeah,
in yourself and your attitude. Then you have failed entirely. Then change profession because this is about human lives.
exactly. Well, that's why, I'm listening to you and I obviously totally understand that, why you're such an incredible teacher and how much legacy you have. and how much knowledge you possess. And you've trained surgeons all across the world. What do you believe that cannot be taught through the textbooks, but only learned through presence and an example?
Now, I'm going to say something provocative. That's a very good question because it points me right away to what my professor in Germany said when I was much, much younger. He said, Theo, I can train a gorilla to become a heart surgeon, but I
Okay.
cannot train the wrong personality. Of course, it was in exaggerated terms, but so it's all here and here, Olga. If there is no communication between mind, heart, and your hands,
Yeah.
then you cannot teach this person. And
Yes.
unfortunately, amongst the hundreds of people I taught, most of them did very well. There were maybe a number of them countable in the fingers on the fingers of one hand that whatever you do, the mindset, either excessive fear or excessive ego, was blocking them, their progress, and they never became good heart surgeons. So after some time, after a lot of patience and teaching, you
Give
basically
up.
abandon them or they
Yes.
change, yeah, give up and they change profession.
Yes.
We are not
Very
all
true.
made to be top heart surgeons. We're not
Yes.
all of
Of
us
course.
made.
Of course.
Yeah,
Well, you see, I understood it very early in my studies that I am not caught up to
yeah,
become a medical
yeah,
doctor. So
yeah.
I gave up and I switched to something else early in life. But I admire
Oh,
everybody who is
yeah,
in this incredible profession. And I have your book, and it's absolutely incredible. I understood very little on it, I should say, but I ventured into it and I try it, and I still enjoy it just knowing how much knowledge you put into it and what you know. And it is an incredible book because it's a QR code based textbook, uh, which is absolutely to me is a bit of a, you introduced a new way of learning. What did you feel that was missing in a traditional
yeah,
medical education that you actually have written and put together this
yeah,
incredible book?
yeah. Well, absolutely. Look, Napoleon used to say an image speaks more than 1,000 words. Let me aggravate this, go one step further and say a video speaks 1 million words. So we heart surgeons nowadays, we stopped looking at very thick Bibles of heart surgery, like 10-kilogram weighing old-fashioned books where I have
Yeah,
to memorize every single line. Heart surgeons need to see how it's done and train it on simulators before he goes
yeah.
into the human being, into the operation theater. This is the future of learning in surgery altogether. So I thought, okay, I will provide the world with a up-to-date heart surgery book on minimal invasive heart surgery, but they also need to see how it's done in the operation theater. When I talked to a prominent publisher, traditional publisher, 300 years old, Taylor and Francis in New York and London, they were delighted. And they all voted, their committee voted for a full production and financing supporting of this project. So back in 2023, this very unique book came out because it was the first to contain QR
Awesome.
codes. So I entered QR codes. So the reader, the heart surgeon, the nurse, the student, while he's reading, he can scan with his phone and see how the surgery is actually
It's,
done.
it's done. Yes, yes, it's
Yeah.
fascinating. It's a complete immersion to me. So yeah, it's really incredible. So people who are listening to us, if you're interested, you should look up that professor's book because it's really, really unique. I would like to move into something that is so potent these days and in vogue, I should say, is aging and longevity. And of course, it goes into the heart health as well. You know, I've attended numerous talks quite recently, and conversations are really floating about longevity, about aging well, and we hear so much about it with optimism, I should say. From your perspective, what does heart health truly mean in this broader conversation about living longer and living well?
Um, well, the heart is also part of a whole. All the organs in the body, including the heart, are interacting on many, many levels. And the heart is a pump that must provide the other organs and obviously our longevity with the energy to go ahead. So the heart is a pump, and it pumps 250 to 300,000 tons of blood in a lifetime, 80 years lifetime, which is enough to fill an oil tanker. So it's an amazing concept created by nature to sustain all the other organs. So it's interrelated with the other organs. If the heart is not in a good condition, who cares about the supplements we take and how often we exercise, right? So it's very important point that you are raising. We must take care of our heart. We don't need to go to the extreme. We don't need to jog 10 miles every day. Walking is metabolically the best thing we can do, fast walking and so on. So there are so many things we can do about our heart and about our diet, what we put in here, in order and before we even start talking about very, very specific new trends. The other thing I would like to mention is that I, I mean, you and me went to school about the same time, elementary school, gymnasium, high school, and so on. So look, they teach us history, biology, math, physics, and all these things. But there are two important things that I believe need to be introduced in every school's curriculum, and that's aging, healthy aging, longevity,
Yeah,
healthcare, how to take care of your health all along your life. If this was inculcated in our brains, in the children brains from a very early age, you would not see so many children smoking, vaping,
yes,
doing other things, or being inactive and not exercising. The second thing schools should introduce is financial education. People should know how to save, how to compound from their 18th year of life. Our
very true.
economy will be less wasting, and our lives will be much better plannable if we would teach these things at school.
Very good advice, and
Mm.
absolutely, I agree with you. Yes. And this, by saying that throughout all these years and acquiring so much knowledge, has your understanding of the heart, not as an organ, changed over time? Like, as a like it's a center of resilience, it's a center of stress, at the same time as a center of recovery.
Yeah,
This all what's happening even
absolutely.
now. Have you adjusted your notion about this tremendous
Yeah,
organ that pumps so much blood
absolutely,
over a
Olga.
lifetime?
Um, Look, when I go to the operation theater after so many decades, of course, I view the heart as as an organ and as a pump which I need to fix. But definitely, from the very first moment I decided to go into heart surgery, those thoughts were part of my path all the time, nonstop, meaning the heart is a very symbolic organ. When we speak about the heart, we actually mean the emotions,
Yes,
our major, most deep decisions. What do you have at heart? Okay, what does your heart tell you? And so on
yes,
and so forth. So it's a very noble and symbolic organ. Obviously, when the heart stops beating, life ceases to exist.
yeah,
So I agree with you. Yeah, it's more philosophical than we tend
absolutely.
to confess. Even we heart
Yes,
surgeons.
I agree with you. And now I want to talk a little bit about the life beyond the operating theater.
Mhm.
You're also a pilot. What does flying give you that surgery cannot, and why and how?
Yeah, well, they are actually very similar. I would say piloting or flying airplanes is a bit of a further projection or an extension of what I do in the operation theater. They're very similar because both involve certain unnatural and very intense moments.
And
Unnatural,
risk
look,
as well, isn't it?
exactly. So I don't want to say the street term, it gives you a kick, but definitely demands, it's a challenge. It's very satisfying, very rewarding. Um, a we nature made our bodies to walk, maybe swim a little bit. It didn't make us to fly. Our body made our heart, or nature made our heart to pump continuously without our influence for 80 years plus. We cannot influence this. Can I stop my heart now? Hey, my heart stop. I cannot. That
You
would
don't
be
want that.
detrimental for all of that, because I'm sure all of us in times of desperations may have thought, I don't want to exist right now. But it's made to do this natural function. But we stop it many times, not always, in the operation theater. So it's also an unnatural condition from which you carry immense responsibility to
Yeah.
bring the patient back from. So in the air, you take a 15-ton or a 10 tons heavy metal object from the earth, you bring it to 20,000 feet, and then you bring it back to earth safely. So you are basically evading nature's laws in a way, and
Yes.
therefore it's a challenge more than it is to me than, and sorry to all my friends out there, playing golf or playing chess. Yeah. And because I
So
never had much time, I needed to do something in the little time I have that compensates for this lack of time and reward. So it had to be something short and intense, therefore, hence flying. Flying is also about freedom. There are no traffic lights up there.
yes.
Believe it or not, once you learn how to do it, it's easier than driving a car in a congested street, in a traffic jam, blink here, turn there, do this, do that, follow the rules. You have freedom up there.
Very philosophical as you are, and
Mm.
yeah, it's wonderful. So, on this note, can you tell a few words about the trip that really, not like a highlighted reel, but the one that quietly maybe changed you or enticed you into some beautiful into some beautiful revelation or something that you would have want to do after that particular trip?
Yeah.
That's something that where did you go that it was unraveled, and this is really even small thing that
Yeah.
was matter for you, and what did you bring home after this?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. So, first of all, I love photography. It's my second hobby.
Yes.
So, when you photograph, you immerse. And when I travel, I take photographs. You take a pause, and it's interesting how they say it, but you see with a camera the way you should see all the time without camera. But you only see these things when you carry a camera because you force yourself to engage in the moment. Many times we walk, we run, we travel, but we don't really see. To the best of my trip experience, if I'm to answer that, was my safari trip to South Africa, where I spent time with animals, where me and my wife, spent time in the jungle, basically, close to the Kruger National Park. We felt so at peace, so centered. If you wish, this was the most Zen experience because we learn from those animals. They are more peaceful than humans. When you go there, and I'm sure you did it or you will go at some point in your life, you realize that the real jungles is in our everyday life amongst humans. An animal never kills
Yeah,
for fun,
you are
never harms
absolutely
for
correct.
fun. Yeah. So the peace we felt there was outwardly. We didn't want to leave anymore. So this basically helps me when I do my own centering exercises, when I try to calm my very busy mind, to stop the ruminations of daily stress. I take lessons from those creatures.
From those. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful. And actually, um, on the same note, I believe surgery as well as flying has to have probably a big demand on a silence and to focus on silence. So I've always felt silence tells us so much more than sometimes words do. So how important the silence is in both you being a pilot and flying and in surgery?
Yeah. Well, very correct. I'm not the most silent person. I interact with many, many people on a daily basis, but I do miss my silent time and I do miss my me time. So at least once a week, I force myself, let's say 2 hours Saturday morning or Sunday morning, to exercise silence or to be with myself and nobody else. That centers you like anything else.
Yeah.
It corrects your biochemistry. We are a physical,
It
emotional,
resets you.
mental
Yes.
entity. It resets you. So
Yes.
it's very, very important to do. Um, when you are alone, I mean, I heard a philosopher recently say the most difficult things in our daily lives nowadays is to keep silent for 30 minutes. Don't do anything. Don't pick up any phones.
Oh my
Try
God.
not even
Yes.
to ruminate and think too much. It's the most difficult thing. And I
I
know you. I
agree.
know how busy you are. You also operate on three
I agree.
continents. It's so difficult, right?
Yes.
Can you
Very.
stop your Olga
Very.
Iselis
Yes.
and tell her, now you sit
Yes.
there, you take deep breaths, and you do nothing else? It's very, very difficult, yet
Yes.
critical.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. And
Mm.
also a little bit of a quick selfish question. We all have, I certainly do, have certain rituals before I fly or before I go on the perhaps the stage and presentation or before I start before I open the doors for my events. That's what is your little perhaps odd routine or ritual that you do before the big operation or lecture or even when you engage into the flying mode. It could be
Yeah,
song, I don't know, maybe a little weird stretch or anything. Is there
yeah,
anything that you have?
yeah.
You don't
Well,
have to answer what it is if you
thankfully,
don't want to,
no,
but
no.
just,
I feel no embarrassment or shame at all to tell you, and this is the absolute truth. I don't have a specific ritual. I'm not jumping around. I'm not knocking my hand on the wall. Or no, 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 no. It's very, very simple. I pray. It can be a very
yeah,
short prayer. It can be a longer one, depending on the skill ahead.
yes.
But if there is a surgeon, an astronaut, an athlete, an overperformer on this planet who is going into the task and thinks he's all alone and it's only because of his skill, then for me, he should quit and go home.
100%. I believe in energy and
Mm.
I actually do the same. I think it's so important. Project and manifest
Yeah.
and connect. I agree.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, and another perhaps selfish question. If someone wanted to steal one book from your bedside table or from your library at home, and it had something to say about your personality or your emotions or your interests, which book it would be and why? See, I told you I'm staying out of that
Yes. Yes.
theatrics
Yes.
surgery at the moment.
Yeah. I'm glad you are challenging me because we're not just professional units. We are more than that, all of us. I
Yes.
would say, James Allen, you are what you believe, or you are what
Okay.
you think, along along these lines.
Okay.
It's a 100-year-old book. Um, we are defined by our thoughts. Our thoughts become speech, become emotions, become actions, and define our personality. They decide over our success or our failures, our
Yes.
relationships, our financial freedom. It's all about our thoughts. And I would advise the younger people out there who are listening to us, you are not your thoughts. You allow the thoughts. They are little clouds that are passing through our daily sky, and we should acknowledge this and let them go. Thoughts are little things. We acknowledge them, we let them go if they are negative thoughts. If you think it, speak it, believe it, you will receive it.
Manifested,
Of-
100%.
Manifest,
I
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
I'm in complete agreement with you, and thank you for sharing that. And you worked with across so many countries and continents and the culture, different cultures. And I always believe that culture helps us process fear and uncertainty more gently because you're exposed to so many different uh, people, so many different surroundings, so many different cultures. Do you think that culture plays a role in how societies experience illness and healing as well in a different ways?
Absolutely. Because culture, as the word says, cultivates perception. It's all in here. Disease is also here. And the way we confront disease is mainly played out here rather than in our body. And this is where humanity has a long way to go to see the human body as a multifaceted, multidimensional entity. We have not reached the level yet where we in a personalized and individualized fashion, attack all those aspects of the disease. So culture, they say, eats up strategy for breakfast anytime. So culture is much more important than the strategy,
Yeah.
my protocol, what medicines I will prescribe to the
Yes.
patient and things like that. In that little world of heart surgery, as well as in our societies, culture, the conglomerated mindset, whatever defines us as a society is more important than the algorithms and the protocols, which are critical for a society or for an individual to function. Definitely.
That's beautiful. You know, you just, yeah, I think next book should be on philosophies and on the
Mhm.
vision of Dr. Theo Kofidis. Really, that's what I feel. Because
Yeah.
you have so much to give emotionally and spiritually that it's super, super important. And we have a few minutes to go before we finish this beautiful and inspiring conversation. You know, I have a tradition that the guests who are on my conversations with Olga, they give a question, put a question up for the subsequent guests. So my previous guest was Federico Raffo. He's very well renowned numerologist, believe it or not. And his question was for you, which is a matter of fact, you answered very well throughout all this conversation. And the question goes, what are you doing for society? Be it in your private life or your public one. And I think, as I said, your conversation that you've just had with me gives the answer, but if you can do it in one sentence, would be great.
In my life as an active heart surgeon, I can help save maybe another 3,000 lives. I already done multiple thousand
Okay.
operations. But in my life as a researcher and innovator, I can touch the lives of millions of people. And this is the best vehicle to basically multiply the impact and the effect. Um, Definitely, I'm not a guru. I'm not a transformer. I'm not, in a way, that person or a philosopher who will touch, the lives of the our global community. Certainly not. But in my little world, with a few insignificant skills that God has given me, I want to help perpetuate the healing effect to touch lives of other people without even me being there to operate. We have developed new techniques, for example, to treat heart valves, which are now being adopted across the planet. Never in my life I felt so accomplished, no matter what little things I have achieved, compared to a surgeon calling me from the jungles of South
Yeah.
America and telling me, "Oh, Prof. Kofidis, we used your method and it worked perfectly." And I wasn't even there. And we helped save our patient. This is for me basically the center of the cycle, as you see there.
Yes, I keep on
This is
looking at it. Yes,
this
yes.
is my why and my freedom.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And finally, as in our tradition, what question would you like to leave for my next guest for the
What is your
subsequent
why?
episode? Something that speaks of how we live, lead, or care for one another, or anything actually.
This will be my question. What is your why?
What
Find
is
your
your
why
why?
in life.
Beautiful.
What drives you?
Yes.
And it's so easy, so simple, the question. But if I go around in class when I'm teaching surgeons or other people, I'm giving a lecture, and I go around and ask all those educated individuals, maybe 1,000 in the audience, trust me, 995 will not know what is the why.
Yeah.
They will
Sadly,
tell you
you're
about
probably
the
right.
how, they will talk, they will ruminate,
Yes,
they
yes,
will meander around the
yes.
point. You have to have the courage to say what is your why, and that would be my question to other people. I'm curious and learn from them. Mm,
Well, you will definitely hear the answer
mm,
in my next
mm.
episode from my next guest. Theo, thank you so much for this generous and grounded conversation and so deep and philosophical and warm and tremendously interesting, and for reminding us that medicine is not only about mastery, it's not only about innovation, but it's about presence, it's about heart in a deeper sense of it, about restraint and care and all this necessary attributes of our life in general. Your work shows us that the heart is more than an organ that has to be repaired, but it's a center of resilience, trust, and responsibility, and that's how we care for it reflects how we care for one another, and you've proven it, and you shared all this with us just now. It's beautiful. Dear all, this conversation will be recorded, will be posted all over it on LinkedIn, of course, on my IG, and it will be also on Spotify and YouTube as well. So please share it, join us, listen to it again, reflect, and think about these incredible words that Professor shared with us today. And thank you so much, Theo, for spending time with us and for sharing your passion and your depth with such an openness. I really, really, truly appreciate it.
Yeah. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on your broadcast, Olga. I was gone for a few weeks, as you know, but I hope to see you back in Singapore,
Very
lining up
soon.
some surgeries in Mount E.
Yes.
I can't wait to see you in person. Thank you so much for your
Likewise. Thank you
hospitality.
so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And stay, take care of yourself, stay curious, and see you at the next Conversations with Olga very soon. Bye. Thank you.